Okay, so welcome to the 20th Kubernetes Australia Melbourne meetup. It's really good to see family faces and new faces as well. Really thank you for joining the community today. And to break a little bit the ice, I will try to make some jokes. So first, why did the container went to therapy? Precious? No, not exactly. Yeah, because of the node affinity. It has really conflicts with node affinity. Another good one, since I passed my CKE exam this weekend. Yeah. So why did I become a good gardener as administrator of Kubernetes? Yes, exactly. That's why I know how to build pods. Yeah, I'm better dealing with clusters than making jokes, but this is really good way to start the night. And let's give it a talk. Not this one. Okay, so if you are taking photos for this event, as usually you're doing, we are asking people to share with us. So you can just put your photos on this folder, so everybody can remember and make posts on the social media, LinkedIn, and share. Okay, everybody got this link? Oh. Yeah, this is the 20th events, and we are also expanding for in Sydney. So if you being up there, join us too. So let me account for the country. Kubernetes Australia is respectively acknowledges the traditional land of the Kulin Nation people, and we pay our respect to the elders, the past, present, and emerging. So this is the agenda today. We will have two talks. One from Peter Anderson, he's a Kubernetes astronaut, and he will talk about the security in API. And we have Stefan Nantz from Datadog. He will give a talk on Kubernetes autoscaling and Cloudcost with Datadog. Then we have the quiz time, so pay attention to these talks. You may earn some really nice swags that we have on the end of the day. And don't forget, we have a group photo in the end, and also open mic. If you have any, you are hiring, you are looking for a job, you have an opportunity at the end of the day. So our mission, you may have realized in all these events, is to share about Kubernetes and make people more aware of how to use these tools and share all the best practices as well. And recently, we are also adding a bit of AI on it. I would like to thank all the volunteers. Without the volunteers, this event will not happen. I will not be here just giving the MC if it was not for all the volunteers. If you want to join the volunteers or the organizers, we have a link you can register. And this is all the volunteers that we have getting. And this is just the team Melbourne, okay? So our main sponsors that we could not have this event without them. Cloud-native computing and Code Cloud. And the event sponsor today, AWS and Datadog. All related to Kubernetes for sure. So let's talk about the K8SUG and how K8SUG has growing around the world. So who knows the history of K8SUG? Yeah, cool. Thanks. Yeah. So yeah. K8SUG was founded by Yongkan, the Kubernetes guy as well, the KS guy and the AI guy today in Singapore. And since Singapore, September 22, we have expanded to Australia. Then we went to Canada, UK, and we are now expanding to, correct? India?
That's Sri Lanka. Yeah,
Okay, Sri Lanka. But soon we are expanding from more two countries besides Australia, and news are coming. I'm traveling to the end of the year to US also to try to expand for there. And let's go because Kubernetes turnout is really out space. And K8SUG is the most activated meetup today. Next events, as usual, we have an event now in Singapore. If you'll be there, make some 5 connections, you can join. Then we have Sydney on 15th of August. Then we will have in UK, August. Then we have in Canada on AWS. And then we have Melbourne here again in September. So the agenda is full. If you miss this event, you will not miss the next one. And even if you cannot join in person, you can always join on the Zoom, okay? We are always sharing this. Okay, next events here in Australia. Who have heard about the Kubernetes community today? Yeah, great. Who will be there in this one, Sydney? Yes, cool. Yeah, so the Kubernetes Community Day is an event held by the community, and it is supported by the Cloud Native and the official calendar. And it will be really soon, September 5th, 6th in Sydney. So if you have opportunities to be there, this is the next big event. Okay, so we always looking for more hands and help for running these events. And if you want to give a talk, is the first link there, first QR code. You can apply for talks. We're always looking for talks. We have these events every month, at least 2 talks every event. We need the volunteers as well, and also we need more sponsors. So if you are willing to sponsor, put your brand around here. It is a big community, more than 15,000 people. If you join all the medias that we are running up, and it's really target community as well. Okay. And follow us. Yeah, this is our page. We have really active in LinkedIn, on Telegram as well, where you can always sharing a new code that you can have a discount in for your certifications. And the X, Twitter, is there. Okay, then Yongkan, I will pass for you.
Thanks, Diego. I'm very happy to be here. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. So how many of you never heard of the Kuberenetes program? Oh, quite a few. Yeah, let me put this program. You can see this in the back. Yeah, that's me. Yeah. I'm glad, my photo was, featured by CNCF from by Linux Foundation in the page to help, help them to promote the Kuberenetes program. So basically, in the short, someone needs to pass all 5 Kubernetes certifications to become a Kuberenetes. So some of the benefits there, I'm not going to go through all of these. The requirements are pretty simple. You only need to do 5 exams. Okay. Okay. Some are hard, 3 of them were hands-on based, it's relatively hard. 2 of them relatively easy. And once you pass the exam, you don't need to any application. So Linux Foundation team will send you a message, congratulations, and you got the digital badge. the digital, the Kuberenetes badge from a credit account, and also you will be sent a blue jacket like this. Okay, and some other benefits, yes, like you can get 50% off Kuberenetes exam discount. If you want to do the exam, that's one of the best. I never seen any discount large or higher than 50%. So yeah, some of our guys, yeah, I will share shortly as well. If anyone wants to do the Kubernetes exam, so I encourage some people, some of the Kubernetes donate their 50% of discount to us, so we can share with more community members to do the exam affordably. Okay, that's one of our mission. We want to help the community to get certified. You might want to find a new job, better job. And also, you don't want to spend too much money, right? I don't want to spend too much money to do the exam either. Okay, that's the Kuberenetes program. I guess how many of you don't need to guess. Yeah, we already got 10 here. And 3 of them are here. Did you guys know? Yeah, Australia actually is one of the, I would say one of the top countries. Yeah, so far Australia, we've got 10 Kuberenetes. And the 6 of them, actually 7 in Melbourne. I'm so happy, I'm living here. Okay, so yeah, I keep encouraging more people to do the Kuberenetes, to do the certifications. So yeah, so far it looks like it works. So including myself, yeah, we got 7 in Melbourne. So special thanks to Cougar Guardian. He's another one. He wasn't here today, but he donated, and also Gary. Both of them donated the 50% of voucher to help our more community members. If anyone want to donate, yeah, always encourage more people to donate. And then towards the end, we will do the quiz time. So we will test your knowledge. Did you guys actually learn from us? Are you guys listening? Okay. If you guys can pass, we will give a leaderboard. And then the result based on the leaderboard, we're going to give away some nice swags. Yeah, some of the swags like this. Yeah, I don't know what exactly it's like. It looks like a pretty nice, a keyboard, and plus there are 2 additional power bank from our Datadog. Yeah, thanks Datadog for sponsoring us. And I also have some other swags. So don't go away, okay? We need to, until you pass the test, you're not allowed to go. Okay. So we also have the Cloud access. So you guys know the Cloud access, Cloud. So that's the best Kubernetes loading platform. So I'm glad I talked to the Cloud founder. I met him in Chicago at the KubeCon in North America, and he's very much support the community. He gave us 3 free access every meetup I'm running. Okay, including Australia, Melbourne, Sydney, Singapore, Toronto, London. Every meetup, they give us 3 free access. So we are going to give 3 of you. You guys, it could be anyone from online. They can take the digital, swags. Okay, and I mentioned earlier, we are going to also give away 50% off discount code. And what else? Yeah, I don't have anything else. Yeah, maybe there are some small, there are some other swags left over from our previous beta. We're going to give away as well, okay? And also, we have some exciting news. Yeah, we're going to, some of these are shared here. So like a code, we're not able to give everybody free access, but we managed to get some deep discount. You want to be able to find it from other place. So 47% off the 1-year subscription, it costs you like about $250. And in the middle, that's the one. I don't know how many people like it to do the instructor-led training. Do you guys prefer to do instructor-led training or prefer online training? It's not my favorite, but it's one of the latest foundation promotions. If you want to do the instructor-led training, we got 26% off. Also, only to our K8SUG members, you can get a 26% off. Okay, so I make it very clear. You need to give us, special discount. Publicly, you can get a 25% off. We managed to get to 1% off. That is also pretty good, right? So the tool price it's pretty expensive. I personally, it's not my favorite. I'd rather spend $250 for Kubernetes. But if you can persuade your company to pay, why not? Right? Yeah. And it's still like $745 for the instructor-led training. Okay, the right one, that's one of my favorites. If you never did any Kubernetes exams, the bundle, all 5 Kubernetes exams. So we managed to get the special discount. You can save like 40.5%. So use the code. Yeah, the blue one, that's the code. So when you log into the training portal, Linux Foundation, you type the code, you can see the savings. Okay. But as I said, this one, I don't really like the middle one. So what if, similar like I go to the Woodford course. Sometimes, you want to buy something, but there is no discount. Are you going to buy? You still buy, right? As long as you can get the 20-30% off, why not? So this is, when we don't have any discount, okay, don't have any better discount, do this one. 30% off better, then you don't have any discount, right? So that's the middle one. I use CK as an example, but technically it applies to any other Linux Foundation programs, okay? Linux Foundation exams, training, etc. I've done enough talking about a Kuberenetes program, at least for the last few months. Every time I was talking about a Kuberenetes program. So let's talk about something new, okay? So have you guys heard of the astronaut? Okay? No, never. Of course, never. I only created the program literally at lunchtime. Yeah, that's serious. So for someone, you complete all AWS certification. So we can give you a title, okay? Astronaut. Yeah, it's a nice name, right? I just managed to complete all my 13, AWS certifications as well. So with the same passion or same mission, we want to help the community to get certified on AWS. And also, same thing, you don't want to spend too much money. I don't want to spend too much money either. So hopefully, if you guys can support me, we can go back to AWS and give us some discount. Okay? Technically, it works. So far, Linux Foundation team, it works. So we can manage to get some discount. But AWS, I haven't talked to the right people yet. So with this, I made myself, I'm the #1 astronaut. Okay, I created the program. So there are a lot of people. Thank you. There are a lot of people. They did all AWS certificate, but there is no such a program. Similar like I managed to become the #1 AWS, #1 Kuberenetes. It's not me, I'm smart. I'm just lucky. There are a lot of people like Rasen, he did a proper CK before me. Yeah. By the time I announced the program, okay, he's a CK expired. Okay, I'm just lucky, by this time I introduced the program, I'm the first one, okay? I encourage you all join me to get certified on AWS. So the QR code will take you to the LinkedIn page. I just created the astronaut LinkedIn page. So guess what, in a few hours, I literally created the lunchtime. So in a few hours, we got over 100 followers. So if I'm looking at the LinkedIn page for the Kuberenetes, so the Kuberenetes program was created by CNC. LinkedIn page I created, okay? So since I created, I announced the first one, of course, myself, is the #1 Kuberenetes. In 3 months, we got 11,000 followers. So technically, we can replicate the same success for the astronaut program. I need all of your support. Yeah, if you guys support me, we can manage to save money for more community members doing the AWS certifications. Okay, the same thing. If you guys want to have the donate your 50% off for AWS certification code, donate to us. We're going to share with more members. Okay, you guys like it? Yeah, thank you so much. I need more of you guys to support us, to help more community members. And I'm so excited to be here today. Yeah, we are just announced our new landing page. Okay, this is something I started the community in Singapore almost 2 years. We never have a nice landing page. So one of our volunteers here in Melbourne. So Jeremy helped me create the landing page. So very sleek, nice landing page. Actually, if you log into the website, you just have a K8SUG.com. You can get to the page. Yeah, actually, should I show you guys? And also on the top, we don't have anything, both of the keys from the astronaut program, the LinkedIn page I created. So I got 2 links to both of the LinkedIn page. Okay. I think I've done enough talking here. Thank you so much. I hope it is useful to you guys. Feel free to follow us, to join us as a volunteers, as speakers or sponsors, and help us to spread the words to help more community members. That's my passion. Okay. With that, so let me hand it back to Tiago.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go for the talks. So I will invite Stefan here. Give the talk. Stefan will talk about Kubernetes Autoscaling and Cloudcost, and he have the word.
Yeah. Hello. I need to replug here a little bit.
This one.
Okay, we're almost done. And then I share my screen and then we're good to go.
This is screen.
Okay, great. So let's get started. My name is Stefan Nantz. I work for Datadog. I'm a senior sales engineer based in Melbourne, and I will run you through a couple of Kubernetes related features and functionality within Datadog. So today I want to run you through to Kubernetes Autoscaling with Datadog. That was just recently announced at our Dash. Dash is our user conference where a lot of new features being announced. Then I will run you through a full stack observability demo. So and that brings me to my first question is, who is dealing primarily with Kubernetes in this room? Show me a round of hands. Do we have DevOps engineer in the room? And front-end engineers as well? Couple of, okay, good. I will have an example for you how Datadog is the end-to-end observability platform monitoring essentially all the way from the front end to the back end. And then are we finishing it off with cloud cost management and how it all ties together. Okay, Kubernetes autoscaling was announced at Dash, as I mentioned before. We had autoscaling before based on metrics. Now we're integrating with the autoscaling of the cloud providers. So that allows us essentially to repack pods and containers and evacuate them and integrate with the cloud providers to commission or decommission individual hosts. Yeah, and that part, of course, also overlaps with the costing because everything in right sizing or identifying idle time has a direct impact to your cloud cost bill. And this is where the autoscaler comes into place. So I mentioned we had a scaler before. The node scaling is up and down of the nodes in your AWS environment. And we also have pod scaling, which is based on metrics, the Kubernetes metrics server. So you can use a Kubernetes metric service already in Kubernetes, but Datadog has a metric server which now allows you to use any kind of metrics which you're monitoring with Datadog. So that means you can monitoring your Nginx environment and using metrics or multiple metrics for your scaling. So where that is interesting is the metric server allows you to specify a particular metric as such, but that is being linked back. Maybe she's seeing this here. So this is linked back to Datadog query. Where that is useful is you can then do a calculation of multiple metrics to create a new metrics as a basis for your scaling of the pods. Is anybody in here using autoscaling for Kubernetes? Yeah. Okay, so with that one, we jump into show you a little bit around in Datadog and how Datadog actually looks like. Okay, so Datadog is a platform, and the Auto Kubernetes monitoring is one part of it. So it's delivered as a SaaS platform, and you can see here on the left-hand side, we have APM, we have got infrastructure monitoring, we have security products, log files, of course, is a big part of it. We have our AIOps engine as well, which is called Watchdog, which is popping up throughout the system as well. So, but today I want to show you around Kubernetes and the scaling part of things. So we are here on the overview page for Kubernetes, and you can see that we're monitoring a number of clusters in the environment. We can see our container restarts. It's the overview page of our Kubernetes and our resource utilization. So that's a starting page within Kubernetes to just give you a high-level viewpoint. But if you now want to dive in deeper, you might have noticed here we have got cost of unused resources, and then workload by autoscaling status. Yeah, and this is where Datadog is now combining the metrics which we're collecting from our Kubernetes cluster, and we're combining them with the cloud costing, which we pull in from AWS or Azure, for example. And with that combination, now we can put a cost number to the utilization of a particular namespace. But we can move that one step further as well, which I will elaborate a little bit later. So if you have a look at how that works from a scaling point of view, so here we're looking at our scaling. So what Datadog is doing, looking at all our resources and of course our idle times for analyzing whether we can actually right-size that particular cluster. So if you want to look at one of those clusters here, for example, you can go in here and it shows you what the potential savings are, where our scaling events took place, and how we can scale the individual applications. That's on a cluster basis, how we scale a cluster, and now we can optimize individual components. And as you notice, we're talking about autoscaler, right? But you're already seeing dollar values here, right? So because as scaling and the value of your, or the costing of your services, of course, that's why we scale in the first place. The Datadog brings them together. So if you look at, for example, one of those applications here, we can dive in a little bit deeper, and it gives us an overview in terms of what we can potentially save on an ongoing basis. So you've got different areas in here as well. So we are analyzing the information in terms of how our service is running, and then we can dive into a little bit deeper here in terms of our memory consumptions and more. But the one which is interesting and which I wanted to show you is the one here. So here we now have got our replica count, which is sitting at 40, and the recommendation Datadog is making based on the data analysis in the past is to set that to 20. So releasing more resources in the environment and freeing you up to do some cost savings. So that is now a recommendation. As I mentioned earlier, Datadog is a toolbox of tools, right? So this can now be also fed into our workload automation tool to actually execute that change. So if you look at this one, so it also suggests the. Can you see that? You see that as well? Yes. Put that over here. So you can see as well the configuration changes which we can move on. So we have everything in place here. This is now we can do apply manually or whatever tools you're using, but you can also automate that within Datadog. So, and this is also an indication where the journey goes with, for example, I mentioned Watchdog, our AIOps engine, and now we have got the recommendation. And as we move forward, that becomes a more and more automated process. Yeah, and that is the direction where Datadog is heading as well with a AIOps-led operations. Okay. So that was from a scaling point of view and how we put the scaling metrics as well as the cost metrics together and how we utilize them in our system. So within Kubernetes, I wanted to quickly show you as well. So this is a slightly different tool here. For example, we have a Kubernetes Explorer. So Datadog has a lot of Explorer windows, whether we are ingesting log files, APM, front-end data, or user experience data, or Kubernetes. All these search windows look very similar. what we can do here. So in this instance here, we're looking at, if you look at something like this, we're looking at our entire environment here, all our pods, right, in a heat map. So if you do for example, service, right? So we are tagging our services here. We have got a service web store here. So we are narrowing down to services. So Datadog is using tags extensively. So we are extracting tags from your AWS environment, or also tags from your Kubernetes environment, or the existing labels which you've got applied. So all that you can use. And that's what I've done here. So we have got a label, which it's a service label, which describes a particular service. And then we can bring it down a little bit further. We can do it, for example, by namespace. We do kube namespace. You break it down by a particular namespace. Actually, no, I should do it the other way, saying that you do it cluster. So let's see how it is. I know it would make sense to write it with a C. Kube cluster. Yeah, so basically you see that our application is distributed amongst different clusters, and then we can do it further by namespace as well, right? So that gives you this gives you now the view where your application is running in your environment. It makes it very easy to visualize where that is running. The same is true. Is anybody using on-prem hardware? No. The same is we don't have many. Datadog is essentially a cloud platform. We don't have many on-prem clusters, but we do have a few. But the same is true, for example, what I did here with cluster and Kubernetes. We can do the same thing, for example, with cloud provider and region, for example, to see where your resources distributed across the individual regions. So if you now go in here, this is essentially a heat map, right? Which is by restart count. So if you go into one of those here, and then can have a look what's going on there. So you see our, firstly, let's start here at the front. We see our configuration of our particular pod. The resources and the dependencies are being laid out. We've got a troubleshooting scenarios here. It gives you an idea where the restarts occur in the past, right? So it gives you a pretty good understanding in terms of your performance of individual pods or entire cluster over a period of time. And now we can also get information from the log files, right? So these are all the log files which we are picking up from a standard out in the Kubernetes cluster. And then we can ingest there also application logs, for example, for the application which runs inside the cluster. So from this view as well, we can go into APM and we can see now the code execution, what is happening inside that particular pod. And that, of course, is very useful. You have the entire view, not only the view from a Kubernetes point of view, but be going all the way into the cluster. We do profiling as well. We're collecting a whole heap of the metrics from the Kubernetes cluster, where that is useful when you have, let's say, a problem or so. Very quickly, I've got everything available here to see where there was a potential resource constraint in your container. We can go further as well in the processes of the particular pod. Yeah, and then we can do network monitoring as well. So that's the network monitoring from a Kubernetes cluster. So with this information, here we can see, for example, a couple of retransmits. So you can break that down. You can now visualize the communications from application to application across clusters, also within the cluster. That's, of course, useful. If something is slowing down, you have got this information straight there and see whether there's an elevated number of retransmits. That gives you a bit of an idea in terms of how Datadog is correlating data, right? So there we did the journey from started at Kubernetes, then we had a look at the log files coming from containers, went into APM, and even the networking side of things. So there are, in most organizations, we have multiple teams. Some people look at the platform, providing the Kubernetes environment, other people are deploying the applications on it. And the next person might be looking at the networking side of things, right? So Datadog, this page, right? So it's essentially one interface where we bring all the data together. We're using tags essentially to correlate those. And let's say we want to hand it over to another person. Or what we need to do is we can copy and paste that URL, and then you Slack it to your colleague, or you put it in your case management tool. And when then the networking person logs in, he clicks on that link, he literally ends up on the same page. And that makes, of course, the handover between different groups much, much quicker. We are helping a lot of customers with true consolidations, for example, where let's say you have APM and Kubernetes and log files separated, and the handover or correlate them by eyeball takes a long more time, right? Figuring out exactly the time frame, going into a logging tool and try to figure out which logs actually belongs to it, right? With a tool like this, it's literally like a copy and paste of the URL, and you can hand it over to your colleague. Okay, so I wanted to show you also something with that was from a Kubernetes auto-scaling point of view, and I showed you how we can go into the pod from a Kubernetes-centric way, right? So, but we have also a couple of DevOps people in the room here. So I wanted to show you what we are understanding from end-to-end observability point of view. So for that is we have actually a demo environment, which is just the e-commerce page. Everybody can log into this as well, and it's just a page which we're using for our demo purposes, right? So you see, I've done it a couple of times. I've got 7 items in my cart. So I'm going to create a checkout scenario and something went wrong. So that was my session here. So I used that to create something of interest for us today, right? So here, what we're looking at is a overview dashboard where we're bringing all these different information together, right? I will expand on the costing a little bit later as well, but we're looking back here. Let's say if you look back a couple of hours. So we have got our front end health here. We have got our frustration signals. We have got long loading times, error rate, and these are very high level metrics. And what is quite good, and that we are using the underlying information from a technical point of view, whether it's from a front end or from an APM point of view, and we are capable of creating high level traffic light kind of scenarios. So a lot of our customers, it is very useful to have a traffic light to, for example, the application owner who is not in the deep into the technology, but wants to get an understanding of the performance of their applications they're looking at. And all these information, of course, are basically presented or floated up from the information which we're collecting. So down here, you notice this thing have changed into red, right? So that means that something went wrong. All these dashboards, since they are powered by the metrics which we are collecting, we can also use them to dive in deeper, to drill into them. So if I do that, I dive into this one, and I'm looking at the sessions here. Look, they're looking at a session from New Zealand, Australia, and there's a session which I just showed you a little bit earlier from our thing. So now we're looking at our front end. We discovered that we had a problem with our front end, and we're getting all this information from our browser. It's essentially code injection, similar to something to Google Analytics. You get core web vitals, performance, latencies, heat maps, and so forth. I won't go too deep into this, but we get all our information from our front end. So we can see what has been loaded here. We can get our session replay. So a lot of customers like this because the recreation of a particular customer issue, the challenge is sometimes it's not recreatable. With session replay, you identify the user who had the problem, and you can see exactly what the error was, right? And then from there onwards, we can start our thing. Okay, I've seen your session. Now let's have a look at the troubleshooting. So we can see all our resources here being loaded. We're supporting feature flags, right? So you can see how successful a new feature the implementation was when you do a staged rollout of a new feature. We can overlay that the feature number, for example, with the latency, frustration signals, user behavior in general. So it gives you very, very deep insight how successful or the uptake to begin with of a particular feature in your web page. We can see all these actions here with actions that allows us to, for example, build out funnels. We're also building out automatic funnels. So we are able to time, for example, every web page has a certain purpose, right? And our web page, it is essentially getting people to a checkout. So we can time how long it takes users to go from our landing page all the way to making decision to actually press the purchase button. We can time that. This information, of course, is very useful if you do a web design at the front end, how can you increase that time to go to a final, to go to submit or whatever you're interested in. So we can send submit logs from the front end as well, and that's all in here. So in this instance, we had a checkout error, right? And from the front end, as far as we get, it tells us there's a backend error. And this is where we're collecting now the front end data with our backends. And then we can go jump into our traces. And there we are looking now at our backend traces, right? So we identified the session of a particular user, and now we're looking at the code execution, which was executed somewhere in the backend. And here we can see our flame graph with color-coded color codes here. You can see at the left-hand side where the time was spent, front end versus back end, and what microservices have been part of that, right? So they can run on an individual machine or Kubernetes or a mixture of those combined. And then we can go dive in deeper here. So there are two scenarios in here. Let me see whether I can get that happening with one hand here. The two scenarios I wanted to show you, which are useful for this scenario. So for example, here you can see a post request for our authentication. Yeah, and let's say for argument's sake, I can't read that is 34 milliseconds, right? It was a long period of time. So from an application point of view, you don't see an error there. And what happens quite often, the application person says, well, my application is fine, must be the database, right? And then in the past, you had the database person going back, when did it happen? No, my database looked fine at that point in time. So in this instance, you can see that we see the database calls here, and that the database responded pretty quickly, and we have some time wastage here in these kind of scenarios, right? So that straight away having that viewpoint here absolutely reduces the communication between different teams, right? Because you haven't got on the same page, no, application is fine, must be something else. So then a developer can go back and start looking at profiling, for example, to see where he could save a bit of CPU and so forth. So let's turn it around and let's say it was a long-running query, right? So you might have, so if I click on one of those things, you can see here that we are now linking it back to our SQL queries. And here we can see, for example, our high-level metrics for the query over a period of time. And let's pick one up where we have actually a little bit more in there over a period of time, and allows you to dive in deeper into the database. Yeah. So again, and then from here on, we can then also be integrating with database monitoring. We can then dive in deeper and get performance metrics from the databases. Similar to the example I did earlier, so the handover between application owner and database admin is seamless, right? It's in the same page. Again, you can hand it over by simply logging that request with that URL. Look, this is what I found. Can you help me out here? Something, I don't know whether you need some help with your database there. Yeah. So that's another example of how we correlate this information here. So if you then, for example, go a little bit further, you can see that we can see all these trace information here as well. So these are all the information from the traces. We can enrich that with user data or certain metrics which we have, and I'll show you how I'm using the metrics in a little while. For example, to calculate successful checkouts environment. We can see all our errors here as well as the stack trace. But if you go in here in the stack trace, we link that back to our code repository, so we can actually go back. I've got I can't get to my tag. Oh, you can see that as well, right? So basically, anyway, you need to believe me here. So basically, this is essentially here coming back from GitHub. If I click on this one, it brings us straight to the repository, to that line where that issue was originated. Quite often, that is very, very useful to the developer, so that's a very good hint, right? So from an infrastructure point of view as well, you can see that we're correlating that to the infrastructure metrics. So here we're getting our metrics from our worker nodes. We can quickly check how our resources were on the worker node. We can get the same metrics for the pod or the container as well. So again, makes it very quickly when you go through there. Yeah, okay, it wasn't a CPU issue or wasn't a memory allocation issue. We get metrics from the runtime environment there as well. Again, networks we talked about, the SQL. Here we've got our profiler, and we're correlating our logs as well. Yeah, so we have got our logs from our application, from all our different sources, and then we can go through here and you can see how that black line is jumping back and forth and pinpointing where our error happened. So if I now go to here, you can see in the span as well, there was a post request which had an error there. If I hover over to that log file here, it aligns also with the particular code execution. So in this instance, we had a rate limit on our payment API, right? So we exceeded the number of payments on our payment gateway. Yeah, so essentially finding the root cause fairly quickly, because we're bringing all these different metrics together and presenting them in a package for you with everything relevant what you're currently investigating. I just can click it away. That was good. Okay, cool. So that's what I wanted to show you here from a end-to-end observability point of view. So I run you through. I run you through the web front end. I created an error there. Then we started our journey at the front end. Yeah.
Just want to do that. So, can you get the IP address of the person that is trying to reach these, like that gets the issue, or the region or the country that the person is trying to reach that like URL? So, for example, I search a URL and I hit the error. Do you get the IP address of that person, or the browser that the person used?
Absolutely. All these informations are in there, right? So, for example, we have a product analytics tool which is based on real user monitoring. It's essentially like a code injection into your web browser, which captures this front end data, right? There we get browser information, IP addresses. We can build out the connections on a map, for example. All this information there. We can get frustration signals. We can build heat maps where the people are clicking, right? We can get scroll maps. There's an entire area of front-end monitoring which allows you to analyze, for example, where did the user base come from? Yeah, so basically quickly to sum it up, we had the front end, we connected to the back end, and then in the back end, we ended up in this screen. We're correlating all these different data sources for you in a single interface. Okay, so then cloud costing, right? So we started off with Autoscaler was already costing in there. Of course, we're doing scaling or right sizing for cost optimization. So I wanted to run you through cloud costing. So Datadog is a cloud costing tool. I mean, we had talked about so far about Kubernetes as well as AWS, but we're integrating with other sources as well, right? So Datadog as a cost is coming in there as well, and other cloud providers, also other services as well coming into the system as well. So it becomes a tool which allows you to associate all kinds of costing into environment, including custom. You can also feed custom costing in. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier when I showed the first screen that Datadog is a big toolbox of individual components, right? So we talked about a little bit of infrastructure or container monitoring earlier, the container thing here, and real user monitoring. I touched on that, and APM as well. And database monitoring too, right? So basically you can see how we kind of expanded the conversation a little bit. So around cloud cost management, it's not only about understanding how much your Kubernetes cluster costs, how we can right sizes, we can take a node out of the system, save a bit of money until we need it again and so forth. But we can take it a level above that as well. Yeah. So that would allow us to identify the costing per namespace, but we can bring it up one layer further, right? We can bring it into the APM space. And this is where we now can combine other metrics with cloud costing. Yeah. So, and that becomes very interesting if you're looking at execution times or how much does it actually cost me to have a successful checkout, things like that. So, and this is essentially similar to what we do with tool consolidation. It's, I suppose, a tool consolidation for costing methods, right? We're capable of consolidating different tool costings into the environment, and then we can also have a single view how our environment performs. Okay, so now I'll show you around a little bit in cloud cost management. And this is a similar landing page to the Kubernetes one, right? So they all start off with this overview page. And you can see we have got our major cloud provider and we've got all providers. And that's what I mentioned earlier. So this is now all the costing which come into the environment from other sources. So, and then here, look, we have GCP, we have MongoDB, we have PagerDuty, and you can see how these costs, Snowflake is there as well. So you can see how these costing have changed over a period of time. So if you then go a little bit further down here as well, so let's jump back here on AWS. So we go down here and we can get the breakdown on costing. So here we do it by AWS product. We can see EC2 went down, CloudWatch went up. We can do it by account names. It is only essentially all the tags which you're already using in your cloud environment, we're pulling them in and can use them. Right, and that moves further across. So if you have a cost center there, you have cost server and you cover Kubernetes, we can combine them all up. So, and then we can go deeper into our costing here zone. You get the idea, right? It's based on the individual components there. And here's an overview in terms of the biggest change in the environment. So if you now go into the cloud cost analysis, so that's our analysis screen, right? So this is already, let's take the service and the team away here, for example. So we're just doing it by the AWS products. So if we start our journey, the journey here, we can see that we have a cost increase on EC2. And that can be now from multiple subscription or your entire company, the EC2 costs, right? So, and now we can break it down, for example, by service. So it shows us which service is actually the contributing factor. And since we want to know who's responsible for that service, we can also correlate that with a team. Right. So and now we can see that our web store here had an increase of costing environment here, and this is our team which is responsible for that. So team is another object within Datadog where we can associate team members and so forth, and also additional meta data. So that means if you're now doing an cost analysis, you know exactly whom to contact for that kind of investigation. Now you can dive into here, by the way, here I mentioned Watchdog before as well. This Watchdog Insights, this is essentially our AIOps engine pointing out things. Look, have a look at this. I noticed this one, right? This is throughout the product, whether it's in log files or APM. It's in there, essentially another set of eyes looking at your environment. So if we dive in and a little bit deeper here, we see our costing over a period of time and a couple of graphs which we've got here. So from here onwards now, if you want to do the investigation here, firstly, in a lot of screens within Datadog, you have got this little copy icon, right? So everywhere where you're in Datadog or you're creating a graph or so, you have the capabilities of copy that and copy it or paste it onto your custom dashboard. So it makes it very easy to build out dashboards. So if you look at this, you can create a monitor with this particular one, or you can save it to a notebook. So a notebook now allows us, for example, to create a particular notebook, and you can create an incident from that. So you can assign can assign a person, say here, for example, at Stefan. So that person would get then a notification. So have a look at this for your investigation. This can now be done as a notebook, or also can feed into our incident management. Incident manager tool, or your external tool like a ServiceNow or whatever you're using. Okay, so that brings me to the overview dashboard which I showed you before, and bringing it all together, right? So we started with Kubernetes and the autoscaling, and there was costing involved. I showed you the end-to-end visibility from the front end, APM, logs, database, and so forth. Now we have all this information coming in, being monitored, and now we can building out these dashboards. Yeah, and I showed you earlier, for example, in here, this is now essentially a dollar value, which is based on information which we're getting from APM. So if I quickly show you how that looks like. So we're using an APM data source. We have got lots of data sources we can use for our visualization. And we have got our query there where we're looking for a particular execution of our code. And we have an enriched value. Essentially, the spam comes with the card value. And all what we're doing is we're doing a sum of all the successful checkout of the card value. So that's a perfect example in terms of basically using technical information and creating a very high level dashboard or even like a business dashboard. The same here, of course, is with unsuccessful checkouts. And then we can, of course, also create a percentage out of that, right? So we're simply using two different values, successful, and then we can do a calculation on that. So if you go then through here, that brings us then further, and that's very, very interesting for developers here. Number of checkouts which we've got, right? And then cost per checkouts. And cost per checkout is, again, we're using the metrics from APM, how often we have a checkout, how long did it cost, right? And where that is useful is because if you have engineers, for example, now chasing latency or want to make the application faster, that might make the application faster, but it also increases the cost. So this is now exactly where the cost awareness is being brought closer to the people who are actually deploying the applications, the DevOps people, the DevOps engineers, or the Kubernetes who are provisioning resources. So the last example I wanted to show you here as well, we have got, for example, from our correlating our, let me make that a little bit bigger. We have got our, here there's another example of frustration signals, and then we're doing an error count against our versions, right? So we're deploying a new code, and we have an overview in terms of our errors being produced, and we can see which version was introduced. So having that correlation between different data sources makes it very, very easy to understand what actually happened, what was the dependency of our code release in that instance. And the last one, which is for Kubernetes, and then we round it all out, is essentially the cost per service. And then here, for example, I show you how that works. We have an individual, let's pop that open. We have an individual service here, where we have our web store, which runs on Kubernetes. We count the number of transactions, and we know the costing for a particular namespace. So that allows us to calculate the cost per transactions. And how that looks like is something along those lines. So we have different data sources from APM, cloud costing, our metrics, and we're doing a calculation. And this is essentially calculation. You will be surprised how many people are using Cloudcost tools, and then they're extracting data and they're massaging the data in Excel or so to get the final report. So with Datadog, you can do all these bits and pieces within your dashboard and then send it out as a report on a regular interface interval.
Okay. So Stefan, I have to post. Our next speaker actually, he's living in Geelong. I don't know how long you need.
No, I'm finished. I have been watching the clock, so I'm just about to finish.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that brings me to the summary. Maybe I make that big. And that was essentially Kubernetes Datadog. We talked about the Explorer, right? The end-to-end visibility which we had there, and then the Kubernetes and the log files and then environment. Okay. So with this one, I hand over to the next speaker. Well, before we do that, do we have any questions?
Yeah, let's keep the questions later. Yes, I'm really sorry, Peter. He's actually living in London, really far away. Yeah, so we'll come over. Yeah, let's welcome Peter to join us to give a talk about API. Yeah.
Folks, are you doing?
Yeah, we're not sharing the screen. Just give me 1 second.
I'll just gonna walk through the doc here. Yeah, what is doing that? Just as a mind mark. So topic I'm going to talk about today is going to cover API security. And a question for you guys, since 2022, do you have any idea of the biggest data breach in Australia? Just like one video, anyone?
As a number?
Yeah, just the number of people, yeah, just give me a quick thought, just the number of impacted companies, yeah, like record, yeah, exactly, sorry. No idea? 20 million. No, it's not that much. Very close, 13. And out of those 13, we have 3 of them due to API security. Like API data breach, sorry. So yeah, it's really important topic to me because I've been actually closely working to uplift the API security in where I work, which is where some are OneDigital. So just a brief intro about me. I'm cybersecurity leader. I love anything tech. A cube astronaut. So many people say they've seen me so many times. I just passed my CISSP exam, which is really big deal. I did it in 2 months. Like it really taught me so much about processes and not just technology. Even though you have the best technology in your environment, you need to have a process in place to actually use that technology. I love playing soccer and also love fast sales. So today's agenda is going to cover, we're going to start with evolving API landscape and why we need API security. Also talk about the API strategy and, oh, sorry, the last one shouldn't be double, but the last one is just talking about what are the best practice when it comes to API security. My personal best practice. Okay, so does anyone know what API is? Yeah, I know it's a dumb question. So this, this is a really good picture of what an API is. It's an intermediary between, whether a user interacting with an application or even an application interacting with another application. So that's pretty much what an API is. And today's landscape, we have modern data architecture where API drives communication between services. The evolving API landscapes and why API security is because traditional monolithic application centralizes API security behind a single fortified perimeter. So take a look, if you imagine your traditional monolithic application, yes, there are API within those monolithic applications, but they don't go up beyond perimeters like we see with microservice architecture. And what that means is with that, if there's a single vulnerability or your API gets vulnerable, it's very easy to spread across the perimeter of your APIs. And that leads us to why we need API security. So we need API security because it is paramount in safeguarding sensitive data within our environment. By implementing API security, we implement robust access control, and we ensure only unauthorized parties can interact with our APIs, thus preventing data breaches. And additionally, secure API architecture guarantees continuous availability and ensures you don't have downtime within your environment. And when that happens, there are also various consequences, loss of financial consequence. Your user don't really trust the brand anymore. So that's why API security is a really big deal when it comes to small to medium or large enterprise. So how do we achieve API security? It's not just about tool, it's a strategy. With that strategy, then you can go out and say, okay, what tools can achieve the strategy in order to get to the API security uplift? So to an acceptable risk appetite. So the first strategy when it comes to API security is you need to be able to have an assets and inventory of your API. This just describes how, having various assets of types of your APIs, what specific host paths, methods of that specific type of APIs, is it internet facing or not? Is it authorized? Is it open? Having that particular inventory also better understand, what data passes through the API. Insights on where to focus on security helps detect shadow APIs. Is a good starting points for the overall posture of your APIs, and also enables API governance. The next step in API uplift strategy is having a posture management of those APIs. So now the previous slide talked about, having a good inventory. So now you have a good inventory of your APIs. The next phase is to take a deep look at those APIs and understand their posture. There are so many standards out there. This picture shows the OWASP API top 10 security. And what does this help you out with? It gives you proactive threat detection in identifying API vulnerability, misconfiguration within your APIs. It helps you prioritize and fix issues faster instead of, being reactive. You're being proactive, having a proper posture management in place. It helps also with regulatory compliance and also faster incident response. The third one is API runtime protection. So pretty much what runtime protection helps out with is detecting and preventing attacks in real time. You can check anomaly within your APIs, check against injection attack. Also depends on how, whatever tool you're using, you can also configure it for automated response to real-time attacks within your APIs. And the final one is API testing. So API testing is by securing your API through the development lifecycle for vulnerabilities before it gets to your production environment. The really cool thing about the proper API testing is you get to be able to test your business logic based on your type scope of your API. So for example, you have your GraphQL API, you could, a proper API testing tool will test against GraphQL test profiles and so on. So, when you're looking for tools for your API testing, these are the things you need to consider. And yeah, finally, these are my best practices from from experiences I've seen so far. The first thing is you need to have a really good API session management. What I mean is, if you look at this picture, the green is good and the red is bad. So outlining here, it says keep your authorization and prevention measure closer to the edge. The reason why is if you follow the red paths, you want to block a malicious event because it's really hard to do that on the microservice level. If your microservice is handling those like authorization or prevention mechanism. But if you put it at the edge, it's very cost efficient and also reduces your the impact in your environment. So this is a really good way to implement your API session management and prevention, and also your prevention mechanism. The second one is segregation of your APIs. You need to be able to understand when designing your APIs, which APIs are external, which one is internal. All your external APIs, you need to categorize it further, so that the public partner, secure APIs, your customer-facing public APIs, also your customer-facing secure public APIs. So what it means is, even if your customer can use a website on this, in order for them to, authorize to get user context, this is the secure paths they need to follow. So having this in place, this two, the secure facing public one and the partner facing public one needs to have a proper secure setting mechanism in place. So yeah, so this is yeah, so I'll say this is like really important when it comes to, securing your APIs. Another one is defense in-depth API standard. As a security folks, even though you go to a platform engineer or your delivery team, do this, what are they going to follow that on? And that is all part of the process. You need to define a comprehensive API standard on how they design your API going forward. You define how your API standard should cover your proper API authentication and authorization mechanism, inventory management, what sort of data encryption you're going to use during when you design your API, logging and monitoring procedure, prevention mechanism, because the landscape is really dynamic. You need to be able to define your API standard to adapt to the dynamic landscape, such as your prevention mechanism like workflows and stuff. Also have a proper testing protocol in place and guidelines for incident response in case there's an API incident. And finally, defense in-depth approach is always the best way. So regardless of securing your APIs, you need to also secure your other environment. So because if you just secure your API, it doesn't mean that's all you need to do. So the defense in-depth approach is start with the network layer. You properly define and update the workflows. Then you go down to your authorization layer. You make cutting-edge system for your dynamic authorization decision. This is where you talk about your token, how long your token should last, session management, and so on. And the third one is going to talk about your protocol layer. And this is where you classify, categorize. This is based on your categorization of your API. Then you have a proper base analysis of understanding, the posture of that API. Then your gateway layer, which is your API gateway, you make sure you utilize every possible inbuilt security capabilities of the gateway layer. Also have a proper monitoring layer to detect complex detection rules to understand logs from your APIs and configure to detect anomalies in all layer, and also CI/CD layer where you do active testing right from the development stage. And finally, your services, you need to have configure the services for best practices, and also have a proper vulnerability management to always update your services vulnerability. Thank you very much. Any questions?
One of your earlier diagrams, you showed the vulnerability entering the microservice within your internal network, bypassing the API gateway. That one there. Can you elaborate a little more on that scenario?
Yeah, sorry. I probably didn't design properly, but what I meant there is, this is like an API or whatever, whatever external API is trying to interact with your microservice. And if there's whatever sort of data breach or someone tries, or someone, unauthorized access in access to one of your microservices, they can use that particular part to transgress within your environment. So that's what I mean by that. Yeah.
And that was one of your items in the defense in depth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What have you used to enforce service authentication?
Yeah. I mean, if you use stuff in the Kubernetes environment, for example, you use stuff like ISTIL for mutual CLS and stuff, but it's not everyone does that. But ideally, I need to really add when it comes to running, for example, you're running a Kubernetes cluster and all your application runs with that cluster. You can sort of segment that as a perimeter. And even though you don't have a defense in-depth approach in there, service communication, but outside that cluster, you should have a proper mechanism to sort of, protect the communication outside the cluster. So that's why you need to have that defense mentality, like defense in-depth mentality. Obviously, like, you know, if you have the capacity to implement, you know, mutual TLS, go for it. Yeah. Nice.
In terms of security, when you mentioned about API,
Yeah.
now when we talk about cloud integrations, and we talk about a majority of our clients are coming in terms of cloud. So for any native approach with integration to API on cloud,
Yeah.
can you highlight something on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I've worked with tools such as, you know, ML platform and stuff like that, and we've seen use cases where for those tools interacting within our environments, they could go through like, you know, a public API route or a private route. So private route is always the best way to do that, you know, that's when it comes to, you know, having that understanding of segmentation of your APIs. So always go with the private routes, whether it's through like, you know, private link in AWS, or like if it's like an AWS, like, you know, communication, if you use like your SCS, you know, so for them to be able to assume role with specific policy in place. And yeah, stuff like that. That's what I recommend. And there are also tools like, you know, Cadby tools out there. And Cadby tools such as Zscaler, I believe, you know, they don't just do client to server communication, they also do service to service communication. And what that means is all your communication is going outbound, and you know, you can always properly monitor it as well. So yeah. Is that all? Yeah, thank you.
Can you name some of the tools we are using for this API security part of the master?
Yeah, so the tool I've used personally, I've used No Name, and it pretty much covers most of the pillar I mentioned. Yeah, that's pretty much right. Yeah.
I have a question for Stefan as well. Didn't have opportunity yet.
Sorry, Stephen, for cutting short. Yeah.
One question. You can go back to the slide where it's shown the red arrows and the green arrows, that one?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, sorry. Oh yeah, sorry. The
Yes.
Yeah.
What does that black line indicate?
So this will either be your API gateway, right?
Oh, that's that's what my question was.
Yeah.
Where's the API gateway?
Yeah. So it's just like a sort of like a threats model.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I may answer, if I may add to your answer to the previous question,
Yeah, sure.
There are certain cases where can you go back to the diagram, please?
This
Yeah,
one? Yeah, sure.
So what happens is, this is a possibility if a given microservice is misconfigured. So for example, if it gets exposed to the perimeter layer and accepts connection from external IP addresses, that's a very real attack vector. So the solution to get around this is to configure microservice in a way that it only accepts connection from an API gateway or one of the peer microservices. That's it. That way we can reduce the attack surface. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I've just got a question. Can the presenter hear me from Zoom?
I have one question from online. Yep, you can say now. Let me hear you. Yep.
Cool. Hey, Peter. Thanks so much for sharing that. I'm just wanting to ask you from a defensive point of view, how does this actually link back to potentially the ability to detect and and prevent any potential attacks when it comes to a modern, Kubernetes cluster, especially, around things like API exposure and secret management? How do you link that back into a defensive mechanism, assuming all proactive and measures that have been put in place have failed? Thank you.
Okay, so you just to understand the question, you said if all this has
so I'm thinking of it from the point of view of every single thing so far. Well, I guess what I understand is that it pays to be proactive and implementing all of this, to implement these measures and make sure that you've got defense in depth and all of that around your your cloud Kubernetes infrastructure, and making sure that all the API endpoints and the connectivity is all safe. Assuming say an organization hasn't actually done that properly, how do you then put detection and prevention in place from a defensive point of view?
Ideally, you probably want to follow these paths, but I get like some organization can't really, or it's going to take time to order to get to that maturity. More needs to be in place, like your API gateway is proper workflow, I'll say, and also your login mechanism. So if you can prevent in real time, at least you need like a mechanism to make sure what your API calls, like you can have a scene rule to look at those rules and detect any particular defects. And what that means is it's going to be too late by the time you detect those malicious events. The damage might probably be like significant. So yeah, that'll probably be an ideal way to go if all prevention mechanisms are in place.
That answer your question?
Oh, sorry, I was mute. Yes, it does. Thank you very much for that. I guess, I just can't help. Obviously, I do have a defensive background, so I'm thinking of it from the point of view of, how do you then have a centralized, auditing in place to ensure that, all of the telemetries that are actually being created when someone tries to access the API and all of that is sent somewhere, and what sort of monitoring can someone essentially have in place to ensure that if an attack is ongoing, how do you then detect that? And that you don't necessarily have to have an answer for that. It's me just thinking about it from a detection and defense point of view.
Okay, thank you. If you want more questions, you can connect with Peter and he will be willing to answer.
Cool. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
So I think in AWS, astronauts can answer that questions. There are services that end up. The Guard Duty, for example, it automatically analyzes your logs and infrastructures in AWS, and it's trying to detect if there are any anomalies happening in AWS. So each cloud providers have some solutions that help you automatically monitor your environments. There are also in AWS things like Security Hub, Config, I don't remember the name of service, AWS Config or something like this. That's automatically verifying if any resources are misconfigured in AWS. So, except of everything that was said here, also cloud providers offer some services that help you monitor your environments. Hopefully that was answered your question.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. Are you already connected to the Wi-Fi, or have you connected security using some VPN? So we will run the quiz round. So please connect to the Wi-Fi, and if you didn't yet, the password is over there, all on the page. Cool. We're struggling. The Wi-Fi network is fast, and the password is broken wireless. at 2019. Okay, please, your feedback is really important to us. It's always helping us to improve. So please answer this small form. Okay, yeah, let's mark that at least for half pizza for each, so I believe it'll be good.
There was a donate page.
Yeah, there is a donate page. Yeah, please donate more pizzas. We cannot do replicas for pizza, so that's not a problem. Okay, so we have some prizes, and I will share with you the link for. No, that's not showing, but there's a moment. Are you ready? We have only 9 questions. And the quiz, if this is your first time, is a multiple question, but it's not just getting the correct answer. It's just a moment, I will share. It's not just getting the correct answer. You need also to get it quickly. Okay. Yeah. I will share. I didn't start yet. That's why I didn't put in the screen. So I will give a chance to everybody. I'm not okay. So I will start the quiz and share the QR code. And you only have 30 seconds per question, okay? And now we have the QR code. Hope everybody can see the QR code. Hey, people are joining. Let's go. This is a tough competition. We have a really nice sweats today. We have a keyboard, power banks, the control access, and also 50% discounts in the Linux Foundation. It'd be really nice. Okay, 26. I believe we have more than 26 people here, so take a little bit more. 22. Okay. Any struggle to get in? You don't need to sign in, I believe. You can just go as a guest. Okay, just 1 more minute. Everybody looks ready. And 9. Okay, who is not in yet? Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go. What is the primary reason for increased importance of the API security modern IT landscape? Ten seconds. 5, 2, 1, and oh. Okay, let's go. Isa is the first. Go to the next question. Ready? Which of the following is not a core component in the robust API security strategy? Ten seconds. You need to be quick here. Oh. Yeah, then no joke that the CKS is the most difficult exam, right? Okay, next question. What is the significance of API testing in a context of security? Five, four, three, two, one. Oh, good, good. That was great. Okay, next question. Why is the defensive deep approach essential for API security? And wow, that's great. Multiple layers of protection against attack. Okay, next question. Which of the following is not a best practice for API security? I agree. This is maybe easy, and I believe you both will get it. Yeah, this is not a core for sure. Okay, next question. How does Datadog correlate Kubernetes metrics to logs, APM, networking, and etc.? Sorry for that. Yeah. One and yeah, tags. Sure. Okay, next question. Looks like Rodriguez is the top of the leaderboard now. How does Datadog provide cost data for individual applications? Two, one, and the correct answer is by correlating Kubernetes metrics with Cloudcost data. Okay, next question. Can you use existing Kubernetes label as tag in Datadog? And yes, for sure. Okay, so this is the last question. The competition for the gold medal is huge. What is the easiest way to enable APM on Kubernetes? Who needs APM? Okay. And yo, that was not good. But yeah, that's it. Let's get the results here and see the leaderboard. Thank you. Yes. See who got the gold, silver, and bronze medals. So the way that's work is the first come, first go. So the winner, Rodriguez. I mean, yeah. Yeah, so you can select what they want to get.
Congratulations, man. What would you like? Yeah, remember we've got a cloud access as well, and the keyboard Logitech. It's like a pretty nice one, and the power bank. Also, the some other small stuff. If you like, promo control play. Yeah, my friend, yeah, that looks like the purchase one.
Yeah, cool. Can you have a
Let's
picture?
take a photo. Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's right. Awesome.
Thank you. Congratulations, Hod. Okay, Michael. Silver.
Do you remember what price we have?
We have power banks, we have percent of exams.
Yeah.
What else we got?
And the cold cloud access, the free access of 6 months. Yeah, so which one you like? Well, that's a smart choice.
Cool.
Actually, pretty costly.
Yeah.
Even 6 months,
I will get your details soon, okay?
Yeah.
Can you take a picture?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the Browns go for SCDD.
Yeah, that's me, but I'm a sponsor, so I want to.
No, or you can get another prize. Come here. Okay. Thank you. So in this case, Kevin off, yeah, come here. Congrats, man. Okay.
Any idea which one you like? Power bank, cold cloud access. Yeah, a small one. Yeah, that's Thank you.
Okay, then Jason. Jason is the next. Congrats, Jason. It's you, right?
Congratulations. Yeah, we got something else. Cold cloud access. We still got food. And if you want to do Kubernetes exam, we got a 50% off voucher as well. A power bank. Yeah, like easy.
Cool. Can you take a picture?
Take a photo.
Yeah.
Is that all right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I forgot to remind you guys. You guys don't just take the swag and go home, okay? I need you guys to do LinkedIn posts to help us to promote, okay? To spread the word to help us, yeah.
Otherwise, we won't be able to get some more slides, okay? Hope you understand. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That's true, that's true. Okay, next is KRKS. Yeah, it's you. Yeah. Yeah,
I would do our cloud.
Cloud access.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's take a
yeah.
photo, yeah.
Thanks. Congratulations. Okay, Isa. Isa was leading the board, but then yeah, we haven't got some. Congrats. Yeah, we still have one called Cloud Access, right? Yeah, and 50% off on certifications. And CloudCasa. Yeah, CloudCasa. Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to take photo, it's all right.
Okay, no worries. That's totally fine. That's fine. Yeah, but yeah. I get later your data for Cloud Access. Okay, so next is Mahesh. Where's Mahesh?
I think the code color is all gone, right?
Yeah, now it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you already got, okay, okay.
We have some for your case study or
You want to know Kubernetes?
No.
There are a lot of terms you might, that doesn't know, yeah.
yeah, maybe
The
you
cards
go-
are very good.
let's try if you
Yes, last time.
if you know one, you can in again. Let's check and so what's kubectl get for the show why does
It gives you all the information of pods with IP addresses now.
oh yeah, it's giving more information, that's correct. Yeah, it means output wide, and you don't need to use a JSON pattern. Okay, yeah, congrats, man.
Yeah, or you prefer, you know,
We
you
have,
do
we
exam,
have.
you will still have a discount voucher
Yeah.
for
For 50%?
50% off.
Yeah.
You go that one.
That's valid for a year.
No, you have to book like by end of this year.
Okay.
So all the 50% discount voucher also donated by our volunteers.
Yeah, I'll go for that.
So you have to book the exam before end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, I'll get your.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, take a photo. All right.
Thank you. Cool.
We still have 2 discount voucher.
Yeah, two discount voucher, yeah.
You make sure you guys pass your full
Excellent.
name, email address to our volunteers.
Yeah. Okay, Lucky G. Lucky G, really lucky, like coming here. Alright. Yeah, we have a voucher for certifications. We have control plane cards for studying in plane.
I'll take the control plane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, take a photo. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, a few more, yeah. But I will stop on the 10s, okay? 10, yeah, up to the 10. And that's it. Sai is the hands. Congrats, huh?
Congratulations. Thank you. Take the 50%.
Yeah, yeah. What exam are you taking?
TKS.
CKS, bro.
We want to track you, make sure you're not wasting the, Seriously, okay.
Next one is CKS.
Okay, take a picture. Yeah. Sorry. Cool, thank you. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Come for the next event, may you get a voucher. We still have, but the next event. For that, we have an open mic. If you want to say something, if you are hiring, if you're looking for a job, don't go away, You cannot go away. We will take a picture yet. So. But that's it. Anyone wants to talk something? Yep. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's go for the group picture then. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we are going.
Come over, yeah, let's take a photo.
The code can access. So I will get some. Let's. That's good.
One, two, three. Another one.
Say Kubernetes.
Got it.
Thank you.